Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Thursday, November 4th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Nebraska game is in 2 days. The game against Michigan in 23 days. The Ohio State wide receiver room is recognized pretty much around the nation as one of, if not the best receiver units in the country. Wide receivers coach Brian Hartline is a big reason why. Since taking over for Zach Smith before the 2018 season, the level of recruiting and production in that unit has just skyrocketed. But Hartline, like the rest of Ohio State's position coaches, only talks to the media a handful of times each year. This week was one of those times. So today you're going to hear from Hartline about his receivers, the incredible stuff they're doing, the challenges that come with having such a stacked room and, only one football on the field, as well as his future with Ohio State. These clips all come courtesy of the Ohio State Athletic Department. The first topic is some of the younger receivers on the team, guys like Marvin Harrison, Emeka Egbuka, Jaden Ballard, and Julian Fleming, who could likely be starting at a lot of schools around the nation already, but who are largely just kind of biding their time and refining their craft right now behind Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. So how challenging is that for them as they have to kind of wait their turn, knowing that they could probably be on the field at a lot of other schools? You'll hear the answer to that. And then you'll also hear a follow-up question from Dave Biddle of Bucknuts.
It's probably a question for them. I think that at times it can be. I think that we have a pretty humble group. I think if you're a pretty humble guy, it's probably not too difficult. There's a lot of things you need to work on. Just because you're able to play other places, that doesn't give you any justification for playing where you're at. So I think they have a pretty good head on their shoulders, and they've been raised by great parents, and they understand there's a process to this. And but that being said, I don't want to assume. It's a good question for them, I think, if you ask me. So.
There's been a lot of great wide receiving cores that have come through here. You run a couple yourself. Do you ever stop and think, wow, I'm coaching perhaps the best wide receiving core to ever come through here?
I pinch myself and can't believe I'm the receiver coach at Ohio State. I leave it at that. I think that's pretty surreal to me. More times than you'd probably think, and I don't take it for granted. I think it hits me a lot when I'm coming off the field. I think sometimes in the hustle and bustle, you kind of lose track of that, and you're more focused on executing and, making sure everyone understands what's going on. But there's definitely times, on game days or pregame and opportunities on Monday. I mean, there's times throughout the week all the time that it kind of hits me in the face. So it makes me smile to this day, as you can tell. But for me, it's not even about the group. It's just the opportunity I have every day.
One of the young receivers who has had to wait his turn, but who might be closer to getting a bigger role on the team pretty soon is true freshman Marvin Harrison Jr. He's been someone who we keep hearing has had a very mature approach all year long. Being the son of an NFL Hall of Fame receiver probably doesn't hurt either. He made a couple of pretty big catches at Indiana a couple of weeks ago and has been a significant contributor on special teams as well. So how close is he to being ready to contribute even more? You'll hear Hartline's answer on that. And then you hear a follow-up from Bill Rabinowitz of the Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, Marvin is going to be a great player. Already is a really good player, and he has a very bright future. I think the fact of all the things you just said is why he's where he's at. If he didn't have that approach, if he didn't have a bigger picture, if he doesn't want to learn every day, if he doesn't want to bring it, he wouldn't be where he's at. So there's a direct correlation between those two things. He's so good because of, and that's not going to change. I think he knows that. I think, again, raised by great parents, dad saw him from a young age, and that's very evident. And I guess what I would say is one of the best pleasures so far, and I have to keep crediting their parents, is that they're great young men. They get great grades. They do everything right. Jaden and Marvin and Emeka, and I never hear from their parents besides, "Coach, how you doing?" Like, that's it. And it's a direct reflection, I think, with them sometimes. And again, we're very blessed in the room. We have a great group of guys, and they work really hard, and they've been pretty productive. And we have to keep going up. But I think that there's a direct correlation with how well, just the overall atmosphere is. You with me? So you talk about Marv, but same with Emeka and same with Jaden. It's been a lot of fun that way.
Yeah, how close are those guys, Jaden and Emeka?
Yeah, they're doing a great job, and I think I hope they understand there's a bigger picture to it all, and I think they do. Everybody wants to contribute. I mean, Marv's done a great job over the last week. Mech has the whole season. Jaden stepped in a lot when we had some injuries, so may not be as much on game day, but throughout practice, I think Coach would tell you how much he's improved. And again, the group is awesome, and it's so much fun to coach. And I guess I can't emphasize that enough, but everyone's doing a really good job.
Hartline's recruiting classes have not only been some of the highest ranked of any position group in the nation, but also some of the most productive. When he's trying to put together one of those classes together, does he have like a specific set of body types that he's looking for? Does he want different types or sizes or skill sets of players in each class? Here was his answer on that.
Well, first of all, I would say I never want to pigeonhole a young guy, a young player of what he can and can't do. I want guys that can do everything. And, I don't really believe in gadget players. I think it's, you're a receiver, and so some of the learning curve's different for others. But, I would say that you definitely want different, sizes and, kind of a prototype in these kind of spots and where's the room at and who's leaving and, what skill set do you need to bring in. And so, although, Chris might run really, really fast, in a straight line. Jackson plays at a very high speed. It's just different, but you can play him in any position. And I think it's a good understanding of, again, what you have, what do you need, what's leaving. That constant variable is what you want to keep mindful of.
Hartline has 3 of the very best receivers in the nation starting for him right now in Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. So which of those guys has graded out the highest so far this season? You'll hear that, and then you'll hear a follow-up from Austin Ward of Letterman Row.
I've never looked at that. I have not looked at that. But I think, speaking on grades, I think that, it just depends. I think a little bit plays into the game plan. I'm sure grades change as, you're at the point of attack versus not. So there's a lot of variables that go into that. But I think you guys have seen probably over the year where, whose game is it this game? And I think that's hopefully a good sign of a great offense and a great, a good room that it's hard to take away everybody. And everyone's got to be accountable when it's their day.
When you see these guys, and so like this week, Garrett and Chris didn't grade as champions, how much of a motivator is that for them? I know they want to win the game first and then maybe grade a champion second. What is that like for the players? How will they respond?
I don't know. We didn't really do. I think we do champions when way back in the day when I was on the team. But that I know probably definitely wasn't public. So the changed atmosphere around that's probably a little different. I think you should ask them, and you should let me know what they say. I'm kind of curious about that. So,
deal.
The fact that it's public, I think, really changes the game. Absolutely, and I think that. But we have standards, and everyone, other coaches can talk about their standards. Our standards, you can still probably grade decent, but if there was this, one of these or one of those or one of these, you're not a champion. And then there's kind of a feel to, is it your championship? It's not across the board. It's Garrett Wilson's championship level. It's Chris Olave's championship level. So that's kind of how I go about it.
Now, that wide receiver room has typically used a deeper rotation in previous years, so the fact that the top 3 guys have gotten such a big percentage of the snaps this year is a little unusual. So is that because those top 3 are so far ahead, or do the younger guys still need to do more to earn their way onto the field? You'll hear Dan Hope of 11 Warriors follow up again after Hartline gives kind of an interesting answer to start with. It's going to sound like a very similar question, but it gets a little bit of a different answer as well, so I'm going to let you hear both of those.
Well, I think that I guess that's always a conversation. There's multiple ways to answer that, and I'm not always great at being politically correct. I would say that, there's a lot of sayings out there, but if you got 6, you don't have 2, and it's the idea of, everyone at some point, in my opinion, being a former player and knowing where I was as a junior and senior and the work I put in, like, I didn't want to come off the field. And if people can see perspective on that sometimes, like one day it's going to be your opportunity. And let me know what you think. When you get in that spot, I'm going to ask you again, do you want me to take you off the field so maybe a younger guy can play? And to me, I think it's past that. If I'm pulling a player off the field, you have to be able to come in and compete at that exact same level, or I'm doing disservice to the O-line, the running back, the quarterback. Like, that's not fair. Like, and it's nothing on any other player, but it's just, you're going to start pulling center every 3 series and put a different center in, and you're going to start pulling. And so, why not? Well, because, so I think there's a correlation to that. It couldn't just be, one or the other. I know in a running back world, maybe, Coach Alford talk on maybe it's hits on the body, so there's a little more thoughts to that, but we don't live in that world. So I don't know. I mean, it's always constant conversation. It's always a topic that we'll always continue to look at and always be mindful of. But I think this year we've done a pretty good job of getting a good amount of guys in, again, dictating on the game. But I think we've done a really good job, light years ahead of what we were able to do it last year. So really happy with that. And again, with a lot of football left, hope to continue to mature those guys. Because I know, I think a big part of the maturation for those young guys is their ability to be in the game as well. And I know that. So, there's a couple guys who wish could have got more in. Maybe we're dinged up a little bit, so they didn't get those opportunities. But they're coming down the road.
Chris and Garrett Jackson maybe playing a higher percentage of snaps than the starters would have a couple years ago. Is that more how much those guys have separated themselves, or is it more, that second line of guys not being as experienced as maybe you had in the past?
It's more on the kudos, more to the guys that are just there. It's nothing, no indication on the guys that are ready to go when called upon. So, again, I'm going to speak on our room and where we're at. Phenomenal room, very, very talented. Time will show, and if we ever get banged up, you'll see. So at this point, we've been pretty darn healthy, and but I know we're going to need all those guys to fit, do this the right way, the path we want to be on. Something will show up, and we'll be ready to handle it as a group.
Now, Hartline coaches the wide receivers, but they obviously work very closely with the quarterbacks. So how has he seen that passing game, and especially the play of C.J. Stroud, progress throughout the season?
I mean, I think what you guys see is what we see. I think that, I think from day one, I've always thought really highly of CJ. I think his poise is the one thing that always jumps out at me. And I think his ability to, flush a play and move on, or great play, let it go, like no indication on the next play, is a very valuable trait that I think he has. And it comes with poise and prep throughout the week and all those things. And so, again, the more he can play and the more he can see, the better he's going to become. And I think the same goes true with the defensive backs. I mean, I've always been impressed with those guys. And I think that, again, the more they can be on the field, the more they'll continue to improve. There's no change there with the earlier conversation we had of last year and compared to this year. And but, I mean, just call it what it always is. I mean, when you start a season, we always say the same, everyone, the best learning is from game 1 to game 2. I bet you guys will hear that next year. And then I bet you we'll talk about how, game 9, we better not be as good as we were in game 1 or we're going to be an issue. So we're taking all those steps. The challenge now isn't to be better than game 1. The challenge now is to be better than the most previous game. And so although we're in a much better spot, we probably think we still have ways to go if we want to get to where we are in, 4 to 5 weeks. So, are we mature enough to take that step? We're going to find out. But, again, there's a process that Coach talks about, to be able to prepare, compete, and then learn. And that's going to happen every week. And, if we prepare at a high level, we're getting a little better. And then we go compete, we learn, and we can learn from it. We'll keep taking steps. And I think that's across the board, not just the quarterback room and not just the DB room.
One of the guys who hasn't played as much as he'd probably want to this fall is Julian Fleming. He was the top receiver in the 2020 recruiting class, but has struggled with a number of injuries and has just 2 catches so far this season. How frustrating has that been for Fleming?
No, I'm sure at times it's been pretty hard. I think that with how competitive he is and all the stresses that come in this common world, in this daily world, I mean, I think it's probably difficult. I mean, he should probably touch on it more. But that being said, I think he's feeling a lot better now, and we'll see what this week holds. And but he had a great camp, and you could see everything going. And guys would probably talk about. I mean, Jackson would hit on it. He comes back and he's feeling better, and he's been good, and made a couple of plays, and we all just kind of look around at each other like, did everyone see that? So we'll just keep progressing, and we'll. I think we'll be in a good spot, but I'm sure it's been pretty frustrating. I mean, if it's not been frustrating, you're not a competitor, so I'm sure it's been pretty frustrating.
When we talked to Denzel Burke last week, he talked about the fact that Hartline was the first Ohio State coach to reach out to him when he was a high school player. Burke told him that despite playing receiver in high school, he actually wanted to play on defense in college. Now, that has obviously worked out fairly well for Burke so far, but how often does that happen to Hartline in the recruiting trail?
That was the first and only so far. Typically, I have a feel for it. You'll get some athletes that do both, And I guess they probably tell both coach, no, coach, I want to play offense. No, coach, I want to play defense. Okay, well. So, but Denzel hit me right in the teeth. It was good. So I called him up. I was like, man, you're a good player. I want to get to know you. But then sometimes as you're getting to know somebody, you're, over a longer conversation. He was electric, great energy. So we kept talking and he was like, I was like, yeah. So, basically thinking, offering the guy, I want to offer you as a receiver. He goes, well, coach, I appreciate it, but I'm going to be a DB. I said, well, let me connect you with Coach Combs. But yeah, I mean, so the ball skills were always there. He was a really good high school receiver, and it was pretty cool. That'll be a cool story down the road. We'll see how that all plays out. But I'm sure you guys have talked to him. He's a great young man, and pretty studious too in his academics, and a great Buckeye so far. So he'll keep that up, I'm sure.
Whenever you have a coach like Hartline who is seeing tremendous success both on the field and on the recruiting trail, it's natural to wonder, what does he want to do in his career? Is he looking, is he going to be shopping for a coordinator job? Does he ultimately want to be a head coach? It's a fair question for someone who is as young and charismatic and successful as Hartline has been so far at Ohio State. But it sounds like, you can hear straight from him right now. It sounds like he doesn't have any plans to go anywhere anytime in the near future.
Ohio State's my home, and and I have a strong passion here, and I loved seeing all the coach conversations and how coaches answer different questions because of all the speculations. I find it very amusing. So now I have to not screw this up. So I would say that I love it here, and it's a passion here, and all I care about is this room, and that's my main focus and my forever focus. And outside of that, I think I would be I'd be lying if I think I'm thinking outside of that, But I'm also not a person to sit here and tell you no, I'm never leaving Ohio State. I'm not saying I ever will. I probably, and you said go up the ladder. Go where? This is the pinnacle of the ladder. So, and the ego at this point, unless it's pretty minimal, I think at times. Maybe other people don't think so, but I don't need the satisfaction of calling plays or whatever. I don't know what that ladder is. But to me, I'm at the pinnacle of the ladder. So, unless there's a relationship that I know of somebody at this spot, and again, I don't think it's even college. I don't know. That's a big question, hard to answer. All I know is I love Ohio State. My wife's from here. We live here. Love my house. I don't know. That'd be really hard. It'd be really hard to leave. I don't think that's ever really in the books. So, but the speculation's fun. I mean, to think to watch the movement in college football, sometimes here's what's weird. Sometimes I don't think of myself as a coach yet, still to this day, so I sit back and watch all this as a fan, oh my God, look at all this gossip. This is hilarious, So I don't want to get caught up in the gossip. I want to be outside. I like enjoying watching it. So you guys would keep me out of it. So
years in now.
I know, it's just mind blowing. When did that happen? You know what I mean? I was just an assistant, and I don't even know what happened. Schmeier talked to me into coming here and never left.
The trestle in your head is where your feet are. So you just.
Oh yeah, I mean, okay. So let's answer this another way. Guys come into the room, and the conversations I constantly have with my wife. I'll just, you're so darn nosy. The conversations I have with my wife, we can't imagine leaving the guys in the room. I can't even to this day. It gives me chills. Trying to walk in and tell them I'm not going to be in the room anymore. That would be really hard to do, and I don't think I can do that. And never say never, but almost chokes me up now. I can't even imagine going in there and looking at Marvin and Mac and Jaden and telling them I'm not going to be here anymore. So, low chance.
Well, Hartline and the Buckeyes will be in Lincoln a little later on this week. We will have full coverage pregame and postgame for that game. You can find that on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. You can also check out our site at buckeyescoop.com. And if you prefer to listen to shows on a podcast platform instead of watching on YouTube, you can subscribe. A lot of these shows, the pregame shows and the postgame shows, that's all going to be on the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed. So you can just find Buckeye Weekly. You can search Buckeye Weekly, or you can just search Buckeye Scoop. That'll give you Buckeye Weekly and all of our other great shows on whatever podcast platform you're listening to the Morning Scoop on. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that bell, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. That'll get you notified as soon as we post those live shows, the live pregame shows, live postgame shows, all that good stuff. It's all free. It's all at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.